Hello everyone, my name's Tim from Welcome to the Table, and we are once again in my car to listen to me ramble about things. Today, I want to talk about two very specific games. The games I want to talk about are Suburbia and Castles of Mad King Ludwig. Now, these games are created by the same person. I don't know the name off the top of my head. And their play is, like, how the game works are very similar. Different themes, different style, but they are very similar in structure. So I wanted to talk about these. The similarities, differences, what was done well, things like that. Because I do feel, I enjoy both of these games, and I do feel that if you like one, you will probably like the other, and there is value in having both. So the first game, Suburbia, sees up to 4 players, 5 with the 5-star expansion, I think, but I don't have it. Up to 4 players, each the mayor of their own suburb. At the start of the game, you each get a private goal for a point bonus, and there's a bunch of public goals set up at the center of the table. And you build your suburb by purchasing hexagonal tiles. And these could be green residential tiles, they could be blue commercial tiles, they could be gray civil tiles, they could be yellow industrial tiles. And each tile does something different. It could be a heavy factory industrial tile that gets you a bit more income but loses you some reputation. It could be a community park civil tile that loses you income but gets you reputation. There's 3 metrics that the game measures your effectiveness by. The first is income, which is how much money you get at the end of every round. The second is reputation, which is how many people show up in your suburb at the end of every round. And then the third is population, which are the actual points to win the game. But it does this weird thing where on the score track there are these red lines. And every time you cross one, you lose 1 point of income and 1 point of reputation. As it's meant to represent like red tape and logistics as people actually show up to, start living in your suburb. And as the game progresses, as you get more and more points, these lines get closer and closer together, making it harder and harder to grow further the better you've done. It also has a market that tiles will kind of move down on as you reveal them from the stack. Every time someone buys one, it starts at the most expensive, which is $10 million. Each tile has a base cost, and to buy a tile, you add its base cost to the market value of the position it's in, and that's the total cost. My camera's tilting. I don't have this in space. There we go. Hold on. That should be better. Yeah, so each tile has its market value and its cost. You can buy a tile anywhere on the track, but you all have to pay more the further back it is. So the longer something's in play, the cheaper it's going to get as time progresses. The way Castles of Mad King Ludwig works is, instead of hexagonal tiles, nice clean shapes, it's got room tiles that come in 8 different sizes and shapes. I mean, you've got ones ranging from a little circle to a big circle to a L-shaped room to a rectangle to a big rectangle to an even bigger rectangle to a little square to a weird shapes. And there's 8, I think, different types of rooms, and then the rooms themselves have different effects. There's a mechanic in Castles of Mad King Ludwig where each room has a certain number of entrances, and if you fully complete a room wherein you attach an entrance, each entrance of the room to an entrance to another room, then special things can happen depending on the type of room. Sleep rooms let you take specific tiles and add them to the top of the stack of cards that you draw to determine what new tiles get added every round. Food rooms, I think, food rooms give you an extra turn. Utility rooms give you more of these utility cards, which are the secret objectives that are... So you've got the main goals, which are worth a bunch of points, and then you got these utility room cards that can give you like little chunks of points based off of how you've built your castle. And finishing a utility room that gets you another one. And, different things like that. Outdoor rooms gives you more money. I don't remember what they all are. There's sleep rooms, living rooms, outdoor rooms, food rooms, utility rooms, activity rooms, basement rooms, and corridors. That's right, that's what they all are. There's a little symbol on each tile that tells you what kind of tile it is. Now, unlike Suburbia, which has nice clean hexagons, Castles of Mad King Ludwig has these awkwardly shaped and set up room tiles that you're trying to work with. And so there's more of a puzzle there, not just where would be the most ideal place to put this tile that is really good for my suburb, as what tiles can I actually fit, based off of what's on offer. And then it also has this other thing. So in Suburbia, there's this skyscraper plinth thing that tells you who is the start player. And the only time that actually matters is obviously that person goes first, but when you draw the one more round tile in the C stack, in the final stack, there's A stack, B stack, and C stack that you kind of work your way through. When you draw the one more round tile, that tells you who started to where you finish, kind of thing. Castles of Mad King Ludwig, on the other hand, has this standee that determines who is the master builder, and that moves every round. And how it works in this game is, instead of just having an automatic market, there is a market with market values, but the value of every tile changes every round based off of the whims of the current master builder. If you're the new master builder, you reveal the new tiles, you put a coin on every tile that wasn't bought the previous round. Why are you going so slow? We're on a highway, man. Come on. And you shuffle around however you like the market values. And then, unlike in Suburbia, where when you buy a tile, all that money goes back to the bank, when anyone buys a tile in Castles of Mad King Ludwig, that money then goes to the master builder. Master builder's money goes to the bank, but the master builder always picks last, which is an interesting puzzle, because if you really want a tile, but other people might want it too, you want to make it cheap so that you don't have to pay a lot, but then if it's cheap, then other people are probably going to buy it because it's cheap and they don't want to give you that much money, so you make it expensive. But then if you make it expensive, either maybe you can't afford it because you were banking on other people buying tiles to give you the money you needed to buy that tile, or if you make it too or you just didn't want to pay that much for that tile because it's not worth that much. It's an interesting puzzle, and it changes every time, every round, because the master builder changes every round. And that is kind of where the main difference between these two games comes in. Suburbia, player interaction in Suburbia is exclusively limited, except for in the case of one tile, I think, It's exclusively limited to, you want this tile, I see that you want this tile, I see this tile would be really good for you, I'm gonna buy it so you can't have it. Whereas in Castles of Mad King Ludwig, there's a lot more direct player interaction, as one person is setting the cost of everything each round. So you can bargain straight up. You can say, all right, look at these tiles on offer. What ones do you guys want, and how much are you willing to pay me for them? And you can listen or not, and because you don't have an income in Castles of Mad King Ludwig, what you have instead is your money comes from everyone else, and it comes from completing outdoor tiles, which give you 10,000 marks. And then it also comes from, instead of buying a room tile, you can just take 5,000 marks from the bank, denying the master builder your money that round and maybe give you money for next round. So yeah, because the game doesn't end until the stack of cards that tells you what tiles to use runs out, you can just delay. You can just wait. Be like, all right, you got to make this much, or I'm not going to pay for it. Oh, you didn't? Well, all right, I'll just get some money. All right, it's your turn now. You got to make it this much, or I'm not going to pay for it. All right, I'll just get some money. You can just kind of do that, and it's an interesting thing because. Eventually, as there are tiles that people don't buy, they get a coin added to them, 1,000 marks added to them every round, and eventually you start getting to the point where it's like, okay, this little tile has 4,000 marks on it. I can't put it on the 2,000 marks market spot, because then whoever buys it is just going to make money off of it. So then I have to put it more expensive, but then they're not going to... Weird stuff can happen in that game. It's an interesting... It's one of the coolest market mechanics in games that I've played in a while, because it is completely player driven, which is interesting. It's cool. Now, Suburbia is an incredibly simple game. My camera is moving. I need to do something about that. Okay. Sorry about that, everyone. The vibrations of the road are causing my tripod to just slip more and more this way down my dash. Suburbia is definitely the simpler game. Mechanically, it's definitely the simpler game. Economically, like just playing it, the mechanics of it, like how to play it and how the money works and any of that kind of stuff. Suburbia is definitely the simpler game. Building the suburb is a lot simpler, because with Castles of Mad King Ludwig, you have, like with Suburbia, the main rule is you can't overlap tiles. You can't overlap tiles with tiles, you can't overlap tiles with borders, you can't overlap tiles with the board. Castles of Mad King Ludwig has rules of, alright, outdoor tiles have a section that's a fence, and you can't put anything adjacent to that. And then you always have to make sure you have one exterior facing door. If you don't, then you can't have that. And then you got, activity rooms. You don't want to have activity rooms touching other types of rooms, because it loses you points. Are they touching? Can I actually fit this tile here? There's a lot of fiddly bits with actually just building the castle, which is a bit annoying, but it is cool at the end of the game, looking down at the table and looking at the nonsense you have made. It is cool, and it's different. So yeah, Suburbia is the easier game. Castles of Mad King Ludwig is the more complicated game, but it's got more thinking going on in terms of like the market and that kind of stuff, whereas Suburbia is basically just a puzzle in terms of, what tiles do you buy, what can you afford, when do you do this, when do you do that, what goals do you go for. Like, Suburbia is the more straightforward game, but they are both good. And then they released some expansions. Suburbia released the Suburbia Inc. expansion, as well as the 5-star expansion, but I already said I don't have the 5-star expansion, so I can't speak on that. Suburbia Inc. Inc. as in Incorporated, was great. In the same vein, Castles of Mad King Ludwig came up with the Secrets expansion. And both of these expansions do very similar things. They add not just more tiles, more things that you can buy, but they add new mechanics and new puzzles to the game that make it so much more interesting. Once we started getting used to the Suburbia Inc. expansion content, that's just how we play it now. We don't play it with the base game content because there's so much extra, like, puzzles and strategy going on that makes it so much interesting. Anyway, what do you get? You get new tiles, obviously, but you also get some new things, one of which is borders. Borders are these big long tiles that can, like, fit 4 regular sized tiles kind of in them. So you build them and you, like, slot them in, and they're generally pretty valuable, but they're expensive, and they, like, wall you off because you can't overlap tiles, right? So if you build a border, it means you can't build in that direction anymore. And then they also don't have the colors, like the residential, commercial, civil, industrial. They don't have the tile colors that get you towards certain goals. So building a border may not actually lead you to, winning a certain goal. So that's interesting. Another thing that it adds is a tile that you place on the top of the B stack and the C stack. The tile placed on the top of the B stack is a bonus tile. And how this works is when you would draw the first tile off of the B stack, once you exhaust the A stack, you then resolve the bonus. And then the tile on top of the C stack is a challenge. Same thing. When you would draw the first tile off the C stack, you resolve the challenge. And how these work is they give you a goal, mid-game goal to work towards. And if you succeed, you get a bonus reward. Usually income, reputation, money, straight up money. It might be population, but I think it's purely just income, reputation, and money. And they're usually like, in the case of the bonuses, it's have 3 commercial tiles, have this much money, have this much income, have this much reputation, different things like that. And then with the challenges, the C-stack ones, it's the same kind of stuff, but it's more. So have 5 commercial tiles, or maybe it's 6, but have, more. And they give you, so you don't have to go for this, and maybe it's not worth it to go for these. Maybe only one person is even going to get them because, not enough blue tiles came up to actually have multiple people get the challenge. But maybe they did. It gives you something to actually work towards mid-game that, maybe you play less optimally to get the challenge because the reward is really good for you. It's interesting. The expansion also adds some new objective tiles, things like that. And it's interesting. The borders add a new dynamic to the game because once you realize how good they are, for the first couple of games we just never bought borders. Once you realize how good some of those can be, you start using them, but then it gives you the weird problem of, okay, now where do I build? Because you can build, so you can do this weird thing of, build a border adjacent to one tile and have it kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and then you build another tile on that, and you can build another border on that. because there are some borders that do bad, detrimental things, like lose you population, or lose you money, but give you a big bonus. Different things like that. And it's interesting. I had a game where, so you start with the main board. I had a game where I bought 3 borders over the course of the game because there was a fight. There was a fight with one of the other players over objective to have the most borders, and I ended up walling myself in completely, and then by the end of the game I had nowhere to build. And it was interesting. It adds a new dynamic to the game. Castles of Mad King Ludwig now, its expansion, its big expansion, not big expansion, its expansion similar to Suburbia Incorporated is the Secrets expansion. And the Secrets expansion adds, obviously, some more rooms. It adds secret passages that everyone gets to use. And it adds swans, of all things. With the new tiles, these new tiles will have little swan icons on them, and that tells you how many swan tokens you take and put on that when it's placed into the market. And when someone buys it, they also get the swan tile. And these, on the back side, will have different colors. And what you can do with these is, at the end of the game, they're worth points. They're worth a good chunk of points if you hold on to them. But during the game, you can cash these in for cash. You can spend these for money that, gets you that little extra bit that you might need to get a really good tile because the master builder is being a jerk, or you've run out of money, or whatever the case may be. So it's that risk reward of, do I hold on to these and risk maybe not getting as much points as I should because I could have bought better tiles? How much are these swans worth versus how much that tile would have been worth? Different things like that. And that's an interesting puzzle. The secret passages, I don't remember exactly how they work, but I think what it was is if you can connect two tiles, it doubles. I think it doubles the effects of those tiles. I think. And they're weird. They're little corridors. It's not all oddly shaped. I haven't played with secrets yet, admittedly. I've got a board game weekend coming up, and I plan on breaking it out to play, because we're going to have 4 people. I think how it works, if you use the Secrets expansion, everyone gets a couple different sizes of secret passages, like one that's 1 square, one that's 2, one that's 3, and one that's an L, maybe. And you're incentivized to use them because they give you bonuses. I think, but I don't quite remember. But what I do remember is that is another interesting puzzle. Where do you use your secret passages? Because, like I said, the tiles do not always adhere to a pattern that makes it easy to use things like these. Now, they give you some different shapes to improve your chances of using them. But it won't always work. And then the swans, because only the new tiles will have swans on them, so you never know for sure how many swans are going to come up. And so then when a swan does come up, it's like, all right, do I keep this for the money, or do I spend it? How much is the couple of points I'm going to get from the swan worth versus the tile? And then, but if I save the swan, then I think I would get, maybe I'll get more points at the end if I can get a couple more. There's a kind of bit of a push your luck element there. And then everyone gets to see how many swans you got. I don't think they get to see the colors. I'm pretty sure the colors matter, though it's been a while since I've read it, and I can't remember off the top of my head. But I think it was something like collecting sets. The more swans you have of unique colors, the more points they're worth, I think. I don't quite remember. But, that's an interesting puzzle. And then people will see, oh, you're collecting swans. Oh, there's another tile with a swan came up. He probably wants that. Well, what would you do? Well, I could buy it to prevent him from getting it, or I'm the master builder. I can make it expensive so that he doesn't buy it. Or I could make it a little expensive so that he does buy it, but maybe I can milk him for some extra money. Because if I can do that, then I can afford this tile, which is going to be worth a lot more to me than that swan and that tile are to him. It's interesting. It adds another dynamic to the setting the prices and that kind of thing. And that is something that the developer for these games did real good. Did phenomenally. They made it with these two expansions, so that what is ultimately a straightforward game. There are some challenges with the puzzle in the game, but what is ultimately a straightforward game, you buy a tile, you place it, you get points. And then, you try and mess with your opponent's economics. They made what's ultimately a straightforward game more interesting with new puzzles, new dynamics to think about. When is it worth it to go for the bonuses and challenges in Suburbia versus just building towards the goals that are on the table and the private goal that you've got? Because remember, these bonuses and challenge tiles, there's a stack of them. And they're, the one that you use is going to be random. So the ones that come up may not have anything to do with the objectives that you've got for the round. Same kind of thing with Castles of Mad King Ludwig. How much do you focus on, how much more worth it is it to finish a tile and get the bonuses from it? What rooms do you go for? You can see the public goals, sure. And those are worth a fair bit of points, but maybe it's more worth it for you to just get a bunch of utility rooms and get those extra cards and points that way. And maybe you got a few of them and you're looking and, ooh, that's a real tough one to actually get decent amount of points out of, but it's worth a lot of points if I can pull it off. How do I pull that off? There's one that's that gets you a boatload of points if you have one of each, at least one of every size of tile in your castle. And then, you might get to the end of the game where it's you only need one or two different types, but there's not a lot in the market. What do? Okay, maybe I can go for sleep rooms, and then I can just kind of pick the tiles that I want and put them on the thing. But then what if other people are going to buy them from?